Well, this comes under the Where Are They Now section, and I'm so delighted to have Andy Mack with us from Manx Radio from absolutely ever ago. You haven't been on the island much, have you?
No.
You just come back once in a while, to say the least.
This is the first time in over 10 years.
10 years. Has it changed
well
much?
Over 10 years, and it has changed. It's changed enormously. I mean, I'm staying out at Mount Murray.
Which is now the Comus.
The Comus Hotel, which, of course, was, I think... it was Albert Goubet who built a hotel there originally. I think they had a fire or something.
Yeah.
And I looked out of the window this morning. I saw all these houses.
They weren't there.
They weren't here, you know? It felt as if I'd been dropped in somewhere from out of the blue.
Well, having you here, we are going to do a longer format interview about the next celebrations of Manx Radio thing. But this just gives me a great reason to play that video out of you in the studio from... 82, I think it is.
I think it would be about then. Yes, I have seen it. Yes.
Smoking in the studios was allowed in those days.
Everything was allowed in those days. It was just a different world.
I mean, yeah, you were very much involved in bringing radio into the digital era, weren't you?
Yes.
But
when I left the island,
but wasn't that more fun? The old days with vinyl.
Now when you look back now, yes. And I do remember when I was first involved of bringing. Sort of the radio into the current sort of modern era, talking to some people, and they were saying, well, just think now you'd be able to say to your grandchildren, you know, what was vinyl? You know, and of course now, you know, I mean, it's all hard disk and it's all...
every week we'd get the latest releases, you know, all the record companies were sending us stuff.
I've had this conversation a few times where you think that in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, you would receive these packets almost daily at the radio station with all the latest 45s. Those are little round things that you used to put on a turntable. And you would open ABBA for the first time and play it for the first time. And you'd almost fight between yourselves who's going to play it first.
And who'd get the record of the week.
And then, of course, record of the week. And we were under the supervision of a marvellous, marvellous man called Mark White. Oh, yeah. Who was ex-BBC, and he'd been involved with Radio 1 and Radio 2, great friends with Terry Wogan. And he really did steer us into a direction that was, I thought was good at the time. But I did the music and I did that phone-in programme, which I think is still going. The Man in Line
came back. The music, I think, is even the same. They brought that back. But, it was kind of, I don't know, how do you describe it? Frontier radio to some degree, producing sound that not many people involved, but making it sound bigger than we probably really were.
Well, yeah, and I think we did one on the TT that actually got into some awards programme in London. I remember going down with Charlie Webster, who was a producer. And the whole thing about the Man in Line, I mean, again, going back with technology, when I first took over the Man in Line, which was in probably 1980, 81 maybe.
Days of Dorothy.
Dorothy from Peel. And the guy who was doing it before was called Alan Jackson. And I used to listen to it, and he would have it that you could hear him talking, but you couldn't hear the person phoning in.
The technology wasn't there then,
They didn't have something which is called a telephone hybrid, which allows you to bring the telephone on the air. And I used to listen to this thinking, how on earth did they get away with this? Well, I knew the technical department at Manx Radio in those days, good old Ewan Leeming, because I'd met him before I even went on to Manx Radio. And I said, you know, Ewan, it's pennies, it's peanuts to buy this little box. But I mean, in those days, he didn't have a penny to spend.
There's not a lot of money.
So eventually they got this, and then I'd spoken with Charlie Webster, and we decided, let's try it, because I'd had all these people coming up to me on the island saying, well, you know, we've got nowhere where we can, you know, say this, say that, and grumble about this, grumble about that. And I thought, well, hey-ho. And it was quite popular.
It was indeed. We'll talk more about this in the long format interview, which may not be around for another year until the celebrations. But what about you today? I mean,
well,
you went off the island and went where?
Well, I went to London,
right,
and I got involved then with an American company doing the digital radio things for the first people that did it. So I got very involved with that and stayed with that probably till the late 90s when I went to France. I lived in France for 20 years.
Wow.
And since I've been back, I now live in Hampshire, and a lovely part of the world. And I am no longer Andy Mack, but I'm Mr. Mack. Computers. So I've gone back to because I do love technology. I'm absolutely a techno freak. So I look after people with their Macs.
Right, that's
so it's quite funny, and I was surprised that I was allowed to use the name Mr. Mac, but of course I'd already been.
Yeah. And then, dare I say,
a different Mac.
There was Andy Mac, the record rack.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Is the shopping precinct still there?
Still there. I'm not
the
sure
old
what's in there now.
shopping precinct. I'll have to drive up and have a look. Andy Mac's record rack. That was 1979.
Goodness. So anyway, you're well, you're fit, and you know.
I'm feeling good. It's nice to be here. A sunny weekend. I hope it stays like that. I'm going to do things that I never did when I lived here.
Right. What's that?
I'm going to go on the trike that goes around the TT course. And I'm going to go on the little train that goes up Snaefell. I never went to the top of Snaefell in the 9 years I lived here.
You're going to be a tourist, basically.
I'm going to be a tourist.
Well, it's been great seeing you. And if people want to get in touch with you, do they find you online with your shop?
MrMac.co.uk.
Fantastic. The one and only Andy Mac.
Thank you, Paul.